The North Carolina Tar Heels, that is the opponent for the Ole Miss Rebels. A blue blood, that's big news. And spring practice started. I think it's important that we bring Michael Katz in here and sort all of this out.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, I'm Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. Thank you very much for that. Ole Miss has a very busy week this week. Ole Miss plays North Carolina. Ole Miss plays in the NCAA tournament, the women's tournament in Waco. The opponent slips from mind. I think it's like at Toledo or somebody like that, but we'll talk to Michael about that a little bit as well. And spring practice started. And if you read Twitter, there are so many great players everywhere. Anyway, Michael, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good. By the way, it's Ball State. You were in the right conference.
Okay. Yeah, I knew it. It was a 12 seed from the MAC,
Yep.
And I guess Toledo because the answer usually in the MAC is always Toledo.
Correct.
For whatever reason.
Yep.
So
I'm doing well. I'm getting ready to fly out to Milwaukee tomorrow. A state I've never been to Wisconsin, so this is going to be an adventure for a lot of people.
The closest I've ever been to Wisconsin is Great Lakes, Illinois, which is about 30 miles from the border. That's where the Navy boot camp is. So I didn't see the sights and sounds when I was there, but it's a little bit north of Chicago. So spring practice started yesterday, and we'll start there. And hey, it got reported out the wazoo. People taking pictures. It's kind of like those quarterback shots of the NFL draft comp was like Anthony Richardson completed a 60-yard pass against the air. It's like, wow, that's great. That's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. It's like, really? Is that what we're doing? And I get it. People are excited that football is back, and Ole Miss has a lot of questions to answer, but those questions aren't going to be answered this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's exciting for people because football's back. I think I always look at it as I go in thinking I'm not going to learn much over these next few weeks because that's by design, and that's just listen. It's like we talked about before the show. It's roll call. It's making sure people are there and seeing what the new guys look like. I think that like the thing for me was I walked in there and I was just like, wow, like. Jackson Dart's not here. Like Jared Ivey's not. Like all of these guys I've seen for 3 years are all gone. It's just such a different looking team now. And I think that's the thing that stuck out to me was, yeah, I mean, every year you're trying to learn new names and numbers, especially in the portal era. Their team's turnover is crazy. But like especially with this team, all of the faces that had been there for a bit. They're all gone, and it's just I don't know. We work with these guys, and we see Jackson once or twice a week, and now it's like it's Austin Simmons now. Like he's the new guy in charge, and it's just it was weird. I feel like I don't know this team. I felt like the last couple of years I've had a pretty good pulse on the guys on this team, and now it's so different now. And I know that's college football, but it was weird.
Yeah, what the weird thing to me was after the quarterback games that have been played over the last several years, you kind of assumed that it would at least be pretended that there was going to be some sort of a competition. But Austin Simmons came in like he was a third-year starter. He's the guy.
Yeah, no, it's funny. There's usually if someone says, your new QB1, Lane would maybe push back on that. No, this Austin's the guy. There's no question. And we talked to Austin a few times, but yesterday was obviously his first time as the guy, and he's really impressive. He's just a really articulate, well thought out young man. I mean, he is the CEO. Like he is a guy who has a grasp on things. Their maturity, none of that's going to be an issue with him. And it was interesting talking to him too, because he has to be the leader now, and he admitted like he's not usually the most verbal guy, and that's something that he's been working on. It was just really interesting to see him be introspective and again for a young guy. have that sort of maturity. I don't think we always see that from a guy who's hasn't played a ton of college football.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And what I got out of the spring practice yesterday from what I saw in Lane Kiffin's interview is he's very impressed with the wide receiver room. He kind of lit up whenever he was asked about that wide receiver room and what they could be. Now, I don't know what that is. Now, we've seen all the routes versus air with Caleb Odom, and I mean, he's 230 pounds and 6'5". He's going to be good looking in that situation, but Deshaun Stribling, Austin Simmons, when I talked to him on Monday, he really lit up about Trey Wallace and compared him to Dayton Wade. I'm interested to see this wide receiver unit, and I have some thoughts after you answer this question about which direction the offense may be going.
Yeah, no, about Odom, I know that this is the time of year when we're like, wow, that guy looks really good without pads or whatever. But like, he legitimately, I was like, that is a huge human being. I mean, he just, if there was ever a guy who looked like a big time SEC receiver, just you look at him, that's the dude. He was really impressive looking. But, Stribling and Wallace and Deuce Alexander, like all of these guys, like, yeah, we knew they had production, obviously, right? Like they had track records. But yesterday it was, for at least for me, my eyes are going to go to number 1 and number 2, and that's Stribling and Wallace. And again, it's against air and all those sorts of things, but those guys look smooth. And I think, I think there's sort of this expectation that, now that Jackson's not there, that they're going to go back to more of like the running predicated offense. But it seems like since Austin has been in the system for a long time now, like maybe that isn't necessarily where it goes. I mean, maybe this is the wide open offense like it was this past year. And I know that they've upped the running back room, and Lacey, that dude is huge. That's a big, strong looking dude. But maybe maybe Austin does have the keys to the car now. I'm really curious to see how it works out.
Yeah, my theory, and this is just my theory, is with the improved role that Joe Judge got in the offseason, with Ole Miss going out and getting Craig on the offensive line as an analyst to help out John Garrison, with the fact that Ole Miss in the transfer portal brought in bigger guys and a lot of tight ends. I think that Ole Miss is potentially not necessarily going to change what they do, but change the starting point of how they do it. Which means you might see Caleb Odom and Luke Haas and Daquan Wright on the field at the same time, which technically that says it's 13 personnel, but those guys are all versatile enough to where you can run the 10 personnel stuff. You can run the 11, the 12, and you can do all of that at tempo. And I think this is Lane kind of playing 4D chess to make it to where in the age of helmet communication, defenses can't match up with what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's they're replacing a lot, and you don't just replace the impacts of Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins and guys like that, but it's an impressive looking group. And like you said, like Lane was very happy to talk about that group yesterday. Like you said, it got a little pep in his step when he talked about them.
Yeah, should be pretty good. Hey, we've made it 9 minutes into the show, and we have not talked about the NCAA tournament. Ole Miss has North Carolina. When we come back, we will talk about that game, the matchups, and the things that you need to know right after this. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch a couple of weeks back, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. It was absolutely nuts. Now I'm able to budget a little bit smarter and save a little bit more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan your long-term goals. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, and you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all of the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for half off your first year. You know, imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable events, which I think Friday might be for a lot of people. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to get last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Curation makes it easier to find better tickets and Game Time picks for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. I just checked the Game Time app, and there are some amazing deals on some huge matchups coming up this weekend. With seat views before you buy and no surprise fees and the lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so let's go back to Michael real quick. And you're going up to Milwaukee. And when I still think of Milwaukee, it's weird, and it might just be my age, but I think of Laverne and Shirley for whatever reason. That old TV show, that is the Milwaukee thing. I know I should go probably that 70s show or Happy Days in that area, but yeah, Laverne and Shirley is the Milwaukee reference that comes to mind every time I think of that city.
That's fair. I just usually think about the beer.
Yeah, and that's what it is, honestly. It was the intro to where they're working in the beer plant, and that just has stuck with me for 40-something years at this point. It's a funny show. I mean, it was a spinoff of Happy Days, but it was a pretty funny show. So North Carolina shot the absolute lights out in their playing game. I mean, they shot 60% from three-point range, over 50% from two-point range. Their guards dominated the game from beginning to end, and they shot about 89% or something like that from free throws. So North Carolina had a game really similar to what Ole Miss did against Kentucky a little bit earlier in the year. And then you mix that with San Diego State, they didn't look right from the jump. They just didn't seem to be able to grab the ball. Their shooting was off all night. It was an easy game for North Carolina. I do not think that game is replicable against Ole Miss. I do not think that you're going to see something like that. But you are going to see a North Carolina team, in my opinion, that would be real similar to Ole Miss drawing in Arkansas in the NCAA tournament. Really good high-level players that if they get hot, like you saw, they can burn you.
Yeah, and especially the last few days, all they've heard is how they don't belong in the tournament and all this stuff. I think yesterday, I mean, obviously they were the better team. There's no question. But I also think like they came out with a little bit of an edge, and does that edge last? How long does that edge last? Right? Is it for the entire month? Is it that one game? I think that edge is easy to keep when you are much better than the team you're playing, and it was very clear early that San Diego State just did not have. They were not going to be able to hang around. And San Diego State's been a really good program. Again, they were in the national title game a couple years ago, but this is not that team. Yeah. In terms of the good San Diego State teams that Brian Dutcher had.
They were the number 4 team in the Mountain West this year.
Yes. Yeah. So, again, no disrespect to them, but it was very clear this was not one of the better San Diego State teams. And this isn't one of the better North Carolina teams either, but the talent is always going to be there. And like we saw last night when RJ Davis is hitting from the field like he was. And I think the interesting thing too is, this is a team that was in the national title game a couple of years ago, or was in the Final Four a few years ago under Hubert.
It was national title game 2022.
Yeah, and RJ Davis is a guy who's been around forever. They have experience. This is a program that is used to being in the tournament, obviously. They've made runs. They think they were 1 seed last year and they got upset. But this is a program that kind of understands like what this is all about. And so it is going to be interesting to see, one, obviously they're playing really well, but like North Carolina is used to this. Chris Beard talked about it. He has a ton of experience in the tournament, and a couple of his players do, Padula and Juju Murray. But a lot of guys haven't been here before. Ole Miss hasn't been in this situation a ton. It's only their 10th tournament appearance ever. Does that play a factor? Just having been there and made runs. This is not something Ole Miss has done, and it's something North Carolina has done a lot. So that being said, I would not expect North Carolina to go up by 40 or whatever it was. This is again, with all due respect to San Diego State, I think Ole Miss is a lot better than the Aztecs.
Yeah, there's a good chance that San Diego State could have had the same thing happen to them if they'd have played Ole Miss in that playing game. There was a lot of issues in that game that were San Diego State's problem, more so than North Carolina being red hot, which it just didn't help. It was a perfect storm. And, this game, it should be interesting to see, because you mentioned Sean Padula. He's from Virginia Tech. He transferred in. He knows playing North Carolina well. Trey Davis started at Louisville. He probably knows playing North Carolina pretty well. So there's probably a little bit of a pep in the step with the people that realize what's going on and getting to play the team in that jersey. I wanted to play this game because Ole Miss deserved a game against that jersey, in my opinion. That they've earned that. And it doesn't matter that they're down a little bit, but I feel a little bit about this game the same way I did about Ole Miss playing Oklahoma in football.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a cool matchup just from history and all those sorts of things. I know it's hard to take the NCAA tournament. Every game's its own thing, and I get that. And they've obviously played a game that Ole Miss hasn't. They looked really, really good last night. That was again, they're a favorite now against Ole Miss as an 11 seed, which is absolutely insane to think about. But until you see it, you just don't know how a team is going to match up. You can look at athletes, you can look at all of these sorts of things, but until they're actually out there, and analytics obviously and scouting and all those sorts of things, but until they're out there, the way North Carolina played against San Diego State is not how they are going to play against Ole Miss, because Ole Miss isn't going to let them play that way. They're too good.
Yeah, and this is the situation that all Ole Miss fans or North Carolina fans that are watching this needs to realize. When Ole Miss has come against guard-dominated teams, Ole Miss has usually won this season. It is when you had an elite big man. If you had a powerful, athletic big, Ole Miss struggled with that. But if you were just a guard-dominated team, Ole Miss kind of ate you up. And they have all year. Look what Alabama had coming in with Mark Sears. I mean, elite guard play didn't matter. Kentucky, the same thing on the outside with Richardson and those guys where they could score a lot of points. Tennessee was the Kai Ziegler. Whenever things ran through the guards, Ole Miss did pretty well this season.
Absolutely. And the rebounding thing has always been, that's what everybody goes to this year, right? North Carolina hasn't been a great rebounding team, if I recall. So it's like the one thing that has brought Ole Miss down, that's sort of even, we'll say. When things are even like that, you feel pretty good about Ole Miss in all the other parts of the game. Like you said, the guard play, defending guards, all those sorts of things. Like you said, when has Ole Miss got in trouble? Big, dominant guys in the middle who can get second chance points and things like that. I don't think North Carolina is necessarily that team. They could be on a given day, but they haven't been that team. So again, all things considered, I think it's it's going to be a pretty tight matchup, just in terms of the things that Ole Miss defends well. And obviously, North Carolina is talented. They're always going to be talented. But there's nothing glaring that North Carolina does that is a weakness of Ole Miss.
Yeah. And the one The one thing that Ole Miss probably needs to work on is they need to make shots. They need to make it to where North Carolina cannot play in transition. Everybody that watched the game saw that they were very good at that. Make them try to break down, maybe do a full court press in the game to where it's completely slow down and all of that. You might see a situation where Chris Beard does that and put Matthew Morrell on RJ Davis and, just kind of see what happens.
Yeah, no, I mean, transition points that's when these great athletic teams, that's when they can really break things open. And North Carolina is always going to have the athletes. So, but again, if you make shots, there's no chance to do those sorts of things. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds simple, but the better looks they get, the better position that their guards and everything are in to get rebounds, the better off they're going to be, because again, you just don't want North Carolina running out and getting easy buckets.
When we come back, we'll talk to Michael about Ole Miss being the fraud of the tournament, according to a CBS analyst, well, AA CBS analyst. We'll talk to him about that. But first, I do want to let you know, daylight savings snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late, watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pickup whenever you need it. I've been staying up late watching all the tournament action, as you would expect, and 5-Hour Energy is helping me stay alert the next day. So head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. You need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shots at your local grocery store or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown. Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, let's go back to Michael Katz and talk about this game a little bit more. Actually, let's start out with this. CBS had an analyst, well, CBS HQ had an analyst named Tim Doyle, who decided to try and generate some impressions, make some quick clicks, do all the stuff that people on TV do these days. And he said that Ole Miss was the fraud of the NCAA tournament. That was his exact quote. They were the fraud of the tournament. And that it didn't matter if San Diego State won or North Carolina won, they were going to beat Ole Miss. Now, after seeing San Diego State, you just have to question the judgment of the whole statement, because if you tried to make an opinion off that. This is hilarious because Chris Beard was asked about it in a press conference, and he was kind of visibly irked by that comment, which makes me think that he was immediately walking out of that, and it was going to be on every single locker. They probably have videos of the guy saying it, playing through the facility. And now you have a game in Milwaukee on Friday with a team that has heard all week that they don't belong in the NCAA tournament, and another team being called the fraud of the NCAA tournament. This could be a game to remember.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, you are going to get the best of both teams who have heard how bad they are for the last week. But just, listen, I understand that a lot of this business is about hyperbole and getting people to look at your stuff, but that's just an interesting thing to say. I don't understand what you really stand to get from it. And like you said, when Chris Beard was asked about it, he initially was like, I have no comment. And then I actually started to ask a question, and before he answered me, he was like, actually, I do want to get back to that. And we were like, oh, okay, here we go. And like, I think it's when you have the sort of resume that Ole Miss has, and the wins that they have, and the conference that they played in, and the things that they've done, and the coaching staff that they have, To call them a fraud is just, it seems a little short-sighted to say the least. Just because, listen, there's a lot of teams in this tournament who, listen, if you're in the tournament, you're in the tournament. You should get respect. But it's to single out Ole Miss was just a very curious choice. Like why were they the team? They have it can't be the resume, because the resume is extremely good. They weren't on the bubble. There was no they didn't have to play the waiting game like some teams did. They knew they were in. It's hard to see why they were the quote unquote fraud. And I guess like when you watch the way they play, it's not like they get lucky. They're well coached and they play hard, and when they beat good teams, they play well. Like I don't know. Fraud was an interesting choice of words, and I have to imagine that they're probably going to be reminded of that in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and if you go by seeds, it just off of seeds, if Ole Miss lost to North Carolina, it would be the worst loss of the season for Ole Miss. Right above Vanderbilt, who's a 10 seed in the tournament. That right now is probably the worst loss of the season, is that game to Vanderbilt. I mean, the only quad 2 loss that Ole Miss had this season was to the number 34 net team in a home game. Mississippi State is 4 spots away from being quad 1 themselves, and Ole Miss having no quad 2 losses. It's just weird. Ole Miss beat Louisville by 25 points in their barn. Louisville beat North Carolina by 15 points. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and I don't think that Ole Miss gets the respect because of the name on the front of the jersey. I think that means so much in today's sports. We always used to joke about blue bloods and all of that, but I think the name on the front of the jersey is so important, because if we're going to be honest, sports writers, they have families, they're busy, they need something that's repeatable, that you can look at whenever you see a group of team. No sports writer can look at 68 teams and be experts in all of them. So there is a certain level of, hey, well, North Carolina is always good, so let's just assume that they're good.
Yeah, it's, I think of it as like Heisman Trophy voting. Like, you can't watch every game, right? But it's like, oh, well, Alabama's always got a good quarterback, so we'll look at him. Again, I get it. You can't watch every game, despite what John Rothstein might make it seem like. He might actually watch every game, but
him and Goodman,
yeah. But it's and I get it. You're going to gravitate. The easy thing to do is to look at name brands, but to single out Ole Miss was curious. It was a very interesting decision.
Yeah, that was quite well. But hey, he did exactly what he wanted to do whenever he said that. Exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Tim Doyle is a closet Ole Miss fan, and he was trying to get him riled up. Maybe this was his plan all along. I don't think it was, but maybe he looks like the biggest genius on earth if he's like, well, actually, I'm an Ole Miss alum, and you find out that maybe there's something there. I'm kidding, but
my opinion, just my opinion on this is, I think that he is like a Danny Cannell in training, or a wannabe Danny Cannell, and that's what he was doing. He was just picking out one SEC team that he thought could lose, to where he could play the fraud game, and the Ole Miss game, he figured North Carolina would be able to pull it off, because North Carolina's 9-2 in their last 11, and their only losses to Duke.
Yeah, I mean, but like there's a lot of, obviously there's 14 SEC teams in there. There are a lot more with quote unquote questionable resumes than Ole Miss. You can't question what Ole Miss has done. You can question how far you think they're going to go. Yeah. You can't question what they've done.
Yeah, in my opinion on the NCAA tournament is, everything that you have to get into the tournament, you got into the tournament. It's fine. But the moment you get selected, the selection show's over. None of that matters anymore. It is a 6-game season at that point, if you can make it that far. And North Carolina, if they're hot, they get good, it's a 1-game thing. You can always lose that ball game. It doesn't matter who is on the other side. You can always lose that game. And honestly, Michael, that's the reason we love March Madness.
Yeah, no, again, thinking back to Juju Murray, he was on that St. Peter's team that upset Kentucky, right? I mean, if that game gets played 100 times, like how many times the St. Peter's win? Maybe it's maybe a few, but Kentucky probably wins that game most of the time. But they didn't that one time that mattered, and so we get in a lot of these scenarios in March, and that's again, it's why we love it. Again, it's a series of 1-game seasons, and I think that's what makes it cool.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. Michael, what have you got going on this week? And I feel like it's a lot.
Yeah, we're kind of team no sleep right now, but obviously the men's team and the women's team are both in the tournament, so we will have coverage of that. Again, I'm heading out to Milwaukee tomorrow. Game's obviously Friday at 3:05 Central Time. So we'll be live and on scene there. Obviously we got a ton of spring football interviews, so we'll have some stories coming out from that. We talked to a bunch of the returners yesterday, including Austin Simmons. And then there's still baseball too. It is the ultimate crossover time of season, but I'm gonna do my best to keep the people informed.
And what time do the ladies play?
That's a good question. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I saw it was like Friday.
It's Friday. Hold on. Let me I can pull this up. I feel like I should know at this point.
And if it's at Friday at 3:05,
that would be kind of criminal, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see. Women's basketball is at. Yeah, I feel like I probably should look this up. 5 p.m. Central Time.
5 p.m. So, okay, it's a doubleheader. Men's team, women's team. Knock it out. All right, Michael, thank you very much for joining us. And if Ole Miss wins Friday, we have to get together on Saturday and talk about it.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right, man.